Hello and welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. My name is Sofia Wolfson and I am your guest host today for a change. You may know me from episodes of the podcast, from being a contributor to the magazine, or maybe we even crossed paths at last year's Fretboard Summit. I'm really excited that I'm going to be back this year in August, and I feel really honored to be here. Jason has done so much for me bringing my music to your ears, and so it's a distinct joy to get to introduce you all to one of my favorite songwriters today. In a world where algorithmic playlists are doing what I feel like, unfortunately, is the majority of the work in introducing listeners to new music, I've found myself instead really craving personal connections and recommendations from friends and artists I admire. So, in hosting the podcast, I'm doing my small part here in combating big bad streaming services and bringing you a whole episode about an artist you may not have heard of yet, but you will be hearing a lot about soon. So today's guest is Brooklyn-based singer-songwriter and producer Renny Conti. Renny grew up in Northern California, and he relocated to Brooklyn for college, and he's lived there ever since. I moved to New York in the summer of 2023, and pretty immediately started hearing Renny's name around everywhere. It seemed like he was playing shows almost every weekend. Renny and I met pretty immediately and instantly bonded over shared music tastes and musical upbringings, and I just feel really grateful to know him, and he inspires me so much. Renny's self-titled record is out today. It is his fourth record, but it's kind of a first in a lot of ways. It's the first one he made in a professional studio, and we're going to talk a bit about that, about how his records up until this point, he kind of masterminded all by himself in his bedroom. And the cast of characters on this record are really top tier, some of the best musicians in New York right now. So without further ado, here is my conversation with the one and only Renny Conti. Fretboard Journal podcast is brought to you by Peghead Nation, Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar, and Stringjoy Strings. You can save 10% on your first order at stringjoy.com with the promo code FRETBOARD. Hi, Renny.
What's up?
Thank you for joining me today on the Fretboard Journal podcast.
No problem. Stoked to be here.
So a lot of longtime listeners of the podcast will probably be unfamiliar with your music, so I figured we would start at the beginning. Could you tell me a bit about, I know you grew up in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Could you tell me about your first encounter with music when you were growing up?
Wow. First encounter of all time with music. You know, I think very early on, it was a musical household, one of those. My mom is a singer, and I say singer because she loves to sing. It's like a lot of like musical theater kind of singing, but she also is a songwriter, plays piano, played a little guitar, taught me that stuff early on. Same with my older brother, guitarist, and then my dad plays sax.
Oh, hell
which
yeah.
is sick. So early on, it was kind of all around the house. But my first instrument was drums.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
When did you start playing the drums?
I started playing drums in like fourth grade.
And how did that happen?
I think fourth grade. That happened because I had two friends who had a drum kit in their back shed, and we would hang out. They were brothers, and they had like a drum kit. And I remember we'd be hanging out, and I'd like just kind of want to scurry off and like play their drum kit. And I remember just kind of going in there and hitting it as loud as I could, and instantly I was like, yeah, man,
This is it.
this is it for sure.
Okay, so then when do you make the transition to guitar?
I didn't make a transition to guitar till I was maybe 12 or 13. I was like playing drums, and I also really liked singing, and I did like rock band camps, you know. Like
Oh wait, tell me about those.
Well, me and my brother were put in the rock band camps in summer because instantly we were already just loving music. I loved listening to like classic rock and stuff. That was kind of my early passion, was like Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, like especially those two bands.
Hell yeah.
Especially Led Zeppelin. And then I think my parents saw that and they were like, well, like they're not in school, what should they do? And it ended up being
Rock Band Camp.
I think it was called Renegade Studios.
Renegade Studios.
In the Bay Area in like 2006 probably or something.
Okay, so you're 12 or 13 when you find the guitar.
Yeah, I came to guitar late, more so as a vehicle for songwriting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first guitar?
First guitar was my older brother's. It was a Blue Ridge. No, it was Blue Ridge.
Yeah.
That's that. It was like kind of a shitty acoustic guitar. Not to say Blue Ridge is shitty. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. I actually don't really know.
That you're just saying that particular one.
Yeah, it was pretty like plasticky.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it was real shiny kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say, though, that you kind of picked it up as a vehicle for songwriting, so you were already writing songs at that age?
Yeah, I think I just had a really deep interest in music listening.
Okay.
And I wanted to try to emulate the artists I loved.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that, since I was already singing, was to play the guitar.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was like, okay, with this, I'll have more of a broad entry point than just like playing drums. Even though I loved playing drums, you
right.
can't like I wasn't gonna be like Don Henley style like drummer singer, you know.
Yeah, not a lot of famous like solo drums and vocal singer songwriters.
No, and it's also just hard like to do alone. You know, I mean.
Yeah.
Like I could have tried, and I'm sure I did try, because a big thing was I got into like YouTube covers.
Okay, tell me more.
When I was in like middle school, in early high school, I loved making YouTube covers.
Okay.
So that was also like, all right, I can play the drum part of like this song, and I can make like a multicam cover of that.
Oh, wow. Okay,
you know,
so these were involved.
They were involved, yeah. I was like, because I was kind of into like video editing. I was like, so I would like set up a couple cameras, like, you know, maybe like kind of anything I could find. Not that I had like a bunch of cameras, but, you know, like my parents like point and shoot.
Yeah.
And then like my, like, you know, little camcorder. I got one for Christmas one year.
Yeah.
And then I would like film myself doing the drums. Then I would like film myself playing the guitar part eventually. But I was, you know, it was like I didn't really seriously start playing guitar relatively seriously till I was like 19.
Cool.
But I was kind of just doing it so I could like play some chords. I knew all the chords. I took 2 lessons with my mom's friend Jolie. Mm-hmm. And then everything else I just learned on my own. So up until 19, I was like, I could play all the cowboy chords, you know.
What songs were you covering?
I had, you know, it was like mostly, it was mostly like 2000s, like punky, like there's a song called Sink Florida Sink by Against Me.
This is unfamiliar to me.
Really? Mm-hmm. Against Me is awesome.
Okay.
I think Laura Jane Grace.
Oh yeah,
is her
she's
name.
cool.
She's the singer.
So.
Or like I think they're still around. I know she has like solo stuff too. But that cover was super sick, and it got like 10,000 views, and I was like 14.
No way.
And I was like really excited about that.
Well, this transitions into something I wanted to ask you about, which is people who listen to your record who don't know you might be surprised to hear that you were pretty heavily involved in like hardcore scenes in high school in the Bay Area.
Yeah, so it went from like the way I've always kind of mapped it in my adult life, my musical journey or whatever, is like classic rock as like an elementary schooler, and that also includes like Green Day, and like what we were all kind of.
I mean, they're classic.
You know,
this
like
point. They're canonized.
Right, you find American Idiot, and you're in like 2nd grade, and it's like for some reason it's the best music ever. Someone, I think I was a podcast where I heard them talking about that. How it's like every kid like hears like American Idiot. It's like for some reason it's just like universally acclaimed by
To me, it's just like
kids.
the sound of like rebelling against your parents and your teachers.
Yeah.
Like that's what I equate it with growing up.
Yeah. And it's also just so like, that record's so clean.
Yeah.
There's something really accessible about it. If you're not super familiar with like if you're just getting into like a good distorted guitar.
Totally.
It's like the perfect entry point.
Yeah.
You know? It was like that stuff. And then I kind of followed the breadcrumb trail into like Black Flag and like the Clash, even though, which is, you know, different, but like the Clash, like the Ramones, then like Black Flag and like Bad Brains. And that was like early middle school, probably like 6th grade. I was like really into that. And then 7th grade, I got really into like metalcore. Which
Crazy.
That change happened because mostly it was mostly influenced by friends that I had made.
Yeah.
You know, naturally.
Classic middle school.
Yeah, like they were like, well, actually, what it was, you know, I think about it, it was like I was skating as a kid. I was like, I want to be like the best skateboarder. You know, I was like really into that. Was really bad at it. Met some friends who, because I changed schools in 7th grade, met some friends there who were in a band, and they were like, we play like heavier music. And I was like, well, I like, you know, like these like punk bands. They're like, yeah, it's kind of the same, but like, can you just like scream like this band? And they showed me like A Day to Remember. And I was like, I can try my best. And then I like sent them a video of me trying it. That I like took like, you know, I did like a YouTube tutorial on like how to scream.
Whoa, you did a YouTube tutorial on how to sing?
Yeah, how to scream,
wow.
You know, but like scream like heavy scream, you know, not like yell, like hardcore yell.
Of course.
Yeah. And they were like, yeah, it's great. Like, let's do it. So then, and they were like, it was my friend Lucas Garrigas, who's now in a band called Spite.
Cool.
And Spite's like super heavy Bay Area, like death metal band.
Sick.
I think death metal. I kind of am like muddy now on like the subgenres of metal.
Right. It's not really what you do anymore.
It's been a minute. Like I still listen to a lot of those bands, like and try to like tap into like different genres of metal, but it's not like as intuitive as it once was.
So you were playing in these bands in middle and high school?
Yeah, I was in a band called Amidst the Kings.
Whoa.
Yeah, pretty crazy name. At first it was Dismember September. Which was like 6th grade, like right when we started.
Yeah.
And then it was called Hands of a Sailor, which I think is like crazy poetic for like middle schoolers.
Oh my God. And then it ended up being
And then it was Amidst the Kings.
Amidst the Kings.
Which is, I actually remember sitting around the table for the name change, and I was like, I don't think we should name our band that, but they were all like, it's not that big of a deal.
You got outvoted.
Yeah, I think I was the one guy who wasn't really down, if I remember correctly. But that band was sick. I was in that band I was the vocalist of that band from 6th, 7th grade to when I was like 17 or 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of venues were you playing?
It was community centers. Kind of like dad local venues, like bar kind of venues.
Oh, so they would let you guys in the bar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there was this one venue called the Red House in Walnut Creek, but we played all around the Bay because there was no scene, like metal scene in Marin County where I grew up.
No,
I mean there was
not.
like a couple bands, and if we went north a little, there was more stuff in like Sonoma. Sonoma County, like Petaluma has the Phoenix, which is like a legendary like venue there. And then we played some other. We played all the way from like Santa Rosa and even like Sebastopol down to like San Jose. It was a lot of like. Eventually, by the time we were in like later high school, it was like DIY venues and like weird like attics and like kind of just like whatever we could find. But the scene was sweet. Like there's still so many people I see like if I go on Facebook where I'm like, wow, like I was like so tight with these people when I was like 15.
Yeah.
And they're like still like making sick music there. And so many hardcore bands now have come out of the Bay that I've seen that are like the sickest bands in the hardcore scene, like Tsunami, Gulch. Like I didn't know those dudes, I think, but like now I see it and I'm like, oh yeah, dude, like I was like so into that, man, when I was like 15, and it was like really definitely my biggest entry point into music, where it like solidified music as like the thing that like, you know, suddenly I had a community. We were all straight edge too, so we weren't like partying, doing drugs and stuff, and like that just like locked it in for me. But listening wise, I was still listening to like bands, you know, who were like singing really melodic, like and so I was doing that band, but I was still listening to a lot of other stuff.
Well, then I guess what I'm curious about is like, if any, is there any sensibilities from that period of your life that you feel like is still in your music today? Or anything you took away from
for sure
your high school band?
For sure. You know, it's like, I think when you come up in a scene like that, music is all about the scene, all about the community. You know, it's like all about the friends, and it's also all about making music for yourself and for your friends. Yeah. And I think that is still for sure the thing that like has never gone away. It's like maybe not so much like musically, like sonically, but as far as like
communal,
the reason behind making music, it's like hardcore bands carry so much weight on like the message behind the music, or like really just being about like expression, aside from like it being about, you know, and I'm sure so many genres do that obviously, but there's something about hardcore where it's like really kind of centered around that.
Yeah, which like to someone like me I've never been a big hardcore listener or grew up in it at all, like that care can seem antithetical to like the actual music, which can be really aggro. Right.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But you know, it's, if you look, there's a band called the quintessential band that's like more or less contemporary, I think, that like is all about like the message that I think of is this band Have Heart, and they're like from Boston, straight edge band, and you listen to like the banter between songs live, and it's just like just as special as the songs. Yeah. You know, it's like the whole thing that they're like talking about, it's about like what's behind the music more so than the actual music, really. Interesting. It's like the heart that goes into it, you know? Yeah. That is really the thing that, for me, like I was like so lost and angry as a kid, I think I felt. And like when I found that, it was like instantly, I felt like I had a place. That was sick.
That's beautiful.
Very helpful for my teenage years.
Okay, so to get people up to speed, because I want to talk about the new record. So prior to this record, you released 3 records.
3 records.
People Floating,
yeah.
Figurines. And my personal favorite, Might Bail.
Yeah, Might Bail.
And so all of those you recorded yourself, right?
Yeah.
Could you walk me through your home recording process? Just so people get a sense of kind of what you've been up to before this new record, which you made in a quite different way.
Yeah. Yeah, I was writing a lot of songs. The first one, People Floating, I wrote that whole album and record all of these albums I wrote and then recorded the same sessions that I would write them in.
Oh, wow.
So I'd be like, I'm going to sit and like start with like from scratch and make a song, you know, it's like time to make a song now. And I would spend like, you know, 5 to 10 hours just like making that track.
That's so interesting, because then the writing process is completely bound up in the recording. Yeah. Like the song doesn't live at all before it's recorded.
Yeah, and there's definitely like exceptions where there's like some I would sit and like record just maybe like a voice memo, and then I like re-record it. But I would say for the most part, for all those albums, it was like I found my little happy place in my room. Yeah. You know, like these monitors, like we're sitting in this.
We are right sitting now in Renny's little office.
So it's like you have the monitors just right on the table, no treatment. Guitar, you know, like I got a Blues Junior there,
But I gotta say, if listeners listen to these early records, they sound, I'm not gonna say shockingly, because I'm not shocked, but they sound so good, and often not like they were recorded in a bedroom.
I think that there's a lot to be said about the mixing process these days.
And I should add that you studied film in college.
I did.
And you specialized in sound.
I did, yeah.
And you've worked as a sound person before, so...
Sound mixer, yeah.
Yeah.
Sound mixer. And I did a little bit of sound design, but...
Yeah.
Mostly...
Which definitely contributes to the home recording process.
I think so, for sure. You know, I think understanding, like, mics and just general, like, DAW software, like, how it works a little bit goes, like, a super long way. Even if it's like a really shitty mic, it's still like it's still a type of mic,
right?
You know, so it's like,
is it shitty if you know how to use it?
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not.
And it definitely also then you can like, there's so many plugins now that you can just throw on that are like can really change the sound of something.
Yeah, it is pretty insane how you can affect things after the fact.
I think the biggest thing for me is like I never was like, these are the rules for recording, and I need like, it's all just like intuition fully. Good. So like those records are just me kind of pretty much learning how to use Logic, and they're also all, except for maybe like 2 or 3 plugins, all stock plugins.
That is very inspiring.
I just think the stock plugins, and that's not me saying like, oh yeah, like wow, like stock plugin, but like you know, I'm not saying buying plugins is bad. Like, yeah, of course there's so many sick plugins, but like the stock plugins you can make work for sure.
Yeah, you know? I think it's an important reminder that recording music is a lot more accessible than the market makes it out to seem today. Like, I think so, yeah. They're trying to sell us on all these really fancy plugins, being like, this is the only way to do it now, or to make it sound like hi-fi enough to be streamed and stuff. But yeah. You and many of my favorite artists have proven that you do not need that.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a friend on People Floating, one other guy makes it. His name's Sammy Fisher. He's a good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. Well, he was for a long time. I haven't seen him in a long time. Okay. Well, I saw him last year.
What did he do on the record?
He mixed it.
Okay.
And we kind of, you know, it was like, it was a long time ago, because that was 2017 that we made that.
Nice.
So
you've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
Renny Conti at this for a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this new record.
Yeah.
So I think a good entry point before we talk about the recording process is just to talk about the fact that this is your 4th record and it's self-titled.
Yeah.
So why now?
Yeah. Well, I love listening to a self-titled record.
Why?
I think it's very like, when an artist like is like, all right, I'm gonna self-title it. As a listener, I'm always like, there's definitely it must be some sort of reason behind that.
This is perhaps this is like the artist statement.
Yeah, you're just like, this is, you know, this is what I feel like. It's kind of, for me, like with this album, like, it feels like this is what I've been kind of like trying to make the whole time. And so self-titling it just kind of makes sense. It feels kind of like we recorded like a year ago.
Yeah.
And now I still, usually after a year of music, I'm a bit over it, but I feel really happy with this one.
Yeah.
The songs too, I wrote the first one in 2020. Mm-hmm. And so it's been 4 years. Okay,
so this writing process was a lot different than your past records because, I mean, you are a very active member of the Brooklyn music scene. You play a lot of shows, and as a fan of your music, I had been hearing these songs, you know, prior to you going into the studio to record them. So how was that different for you? Like, instead of you said in the early recordings, you'd often like sit down, write the whole song, and record it all in one session.
Yeah.
Now you've got a record where you've got older songs, not older, but songs that have kind of been marinating for a while in live iterations that you finally took into the studio.
Yeah. I was always writing this album while I was making the last two.
Cool.
So I was like, one day I'm going to get the money to go into a studio with an engineer and some musician friends who I love and make a studio, like a record in a studio. It was like actually like not even like, it was like my dream. I was like, I'm so excited to do that one day.
Yeah.
And when it came to fruition, I was like, like every day in the studio, I was like, wow, like this is the best thing ever.
Wait, so let's talk a little bit about that experience for you, because again, you've made 3 whole records in your room.
Yeah.
So what were some of your experiences? What were some of the differences you felt having an engineer there? Talk a bit about the studio and who engineered it. And
well, I have to be honest and say that I recorded the whole record in my room and then just re-recorded everything, except for some things that fall kind of on top of the mix, like little like melodic like lead parts.
Did you do that
Those
because
are
you
from
wanted to have like a full idea of the arrangement going into the studio?
Yeah, and I think I'm still so comfortable creatively in the room space that like it gives me so much like freedom to like actually like come up with like a lot of the times the things that carry the song.
Yeah.
Which is like this little guitar part that's like gonna come over after the chorus, or like even like the feel of a song, because you can do it in so many ways. And so I'll like program the drums first and then map it out structurally.
Cool.
And then like record the song over it. And then for this, I was like, I had the whole record recorded that way in the room. Like it kind of sounded like one of the earlier albums, but with fake drums. Because I would usually sometimes re-record the drums if there were drums, or I'll just keep the fake drums on a couple songs. And then when we went in, it was like very little room for spontaneity. Yeah. But I was okay with that because I knew that the spontaneity had already like happened.
Totally. You'd already had the free form, time to work out the arrangements. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I forgot that that's how it went down. Yeah. I'm just gonna drink this coffee. I think Renny is allowed to drink coffee. Yeah, that's so interesting because on paper that kind of sounds like a more rigid way to go into the studio.
I'll tell you, it was a bit rigid. Yeah. I think like I worked with Zach Coe. Mm-hmm. You know Zach.
Our good friend. Shout out to our good friend Zach Coe, who's incredible like, drummer.
Such a good drummer. Yeah. Dude. Like I fucking love him as a musician. Yeah. And person, but as a drummer, he's just I actually delayed the whole recording process a month so he could be the drummer on the record. And I think he would say that it was really pretty rigid. I was like, hey man, like, I was really like this way, and I feel conflicted about that creatively. I'm like, yeah, but I listen back now and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I think want.
I think it makes so much sense because I've run into trouble in the studio not having a full idea of what to do and almost like feeling like I'm wasting time or something. And so I like that there's this whole ghost record that exists of your demos like fully planned out. Right, yeah. But there's still, even though that version of this record exists, there still just is a totally different energy to this record because you were in a studio and you collaborated with people. So talk a bit more about some of the collaboration on the record. Like, why don't we talk about our dear friend Isaac Stalling?
Yeah, like Isaac is like so much of this album. Like we recorded all the bones of it, and then I had just met him when I was assistant engineering with Sam Skinner, and we were working on his songs, and I like showed up. I was like, hey, great to meet you. And then the next week he like came in and did all a lot of the guitar stuff. So not all of it, but probably like 80% of like the lead guitar is Isaac.
Which is interesting because I'm assuming he was probably like kind of riffing on some of the motifs in your demos.
Totally.
But that was probably more of a department where he was adding stuff that wasn't fully in your demos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He like tonally, I think he would take like, I would do like have like a solo or lead part there. Mm-hmm. He was like taking maybe like a little melodic idea or kind of just like a stylistic, like I think on there's track 1's called Workhorse, and at the end he comes in with a really like almost like sludgy like solo-esque kind of atmospheric thing. And I remember he was like, oh, like we were trying to match this like very poorly recorded like super wonky solo that I did in the demo.
Yeah.
Like tonally we were trying to match it.
Yeah.
But of course his playing is like fucking amazing and infinitely better than mine would have been.
Well, it's just different. He does bring so much like beautiful texture to the record.
Oh yeah. And his guitar tones too. He's like just fucking such a master.
Yeah.
Like those lead parts sound so cool.
My favorite song on the record, as you know, because I've bugged you about it a million times, is Form Spring.
Right.
Could you talk a bit about where that one came from?
Yeah, that's the first one I wrote for it.
Really?
In 2020 COVID lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Classic. And that was like, because it was the first one, that and the track after, I Find It Hard, I wrote in the same couple days.
Whoa.
And kind of were like they were like the ones where I was like, the record is going to be built around these songs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, Form Spring, I was like, this feels like a song I have never made, which I think is always the best feeling when you're writing and you're like, wow, this feels so new.
I will just add, as a listener, I feel like I have nothing to compare it to. Like it's, I think I was thinking about like why I'm obsessed with it is like, it just has this like playful creepiness.
Right.
In a way that I'm just like unfamiliar with in our genre.
Right.
And it has that, but it's also so catchy.
Right.
It's like the perfect marriage of all these things. And I feel like the recording, I had a demo before, and I feel like the recording just like brought it out of its shell even more. Yeah,
we layered a lot.
Yeah.
That wasn't on the demo. And the demo's the original like way where I was like in the room, wrote and recorded the demo in like, however long. Mm-hmm. And it has like the fake drums and shit.
But I guess what I'm curious about is why lyrically with those two songs, after you wrote them, did you feel like, okay, the record is going to kind of surround this core of these two songs?
I think I just knew I couldn't record them in my room.
Oh, interesting. So it was like the scale.
Yeah, scale, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, this has to be re-recorded in a studio.
Yeah.
So I had those like demos and the idea, and I kind of had the kind of like tonally they both did feel a little maybe playful, but still like a little like something cohesive about the two of them together where I was like, and so then when I was writing, I would just write. Mm-hmm. I wrote a bunch, I wrote like Might Bail while I was also writing all those other songs. But I would just kind of pick and choose, be like, oh, this one I'm going to leave as like the bedroom.
The studio one.
Yeah, so I was kind of working on like the two records at the same time. Wow. And I was like, these I'll put away and like track list out for the studio record that I'll do when I have money. And then these I'll do for the I'll just put out.
It is still funny though that we're saying like studio and bedroom one, because before I had heard Might Bail before I met you, and of all the records I've listened to that were recorded in rooms, and I feel like I have a moderate ear. I had no idea that one was recorded in your room. It's very impressive.
That's funny. But it's also, when you listen to it, it's a lot of like samples and like, so it's like, it's really easy, especially in New York, like that kind of, it's it's so impossible to like record drums at home.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's I don't know. I was like trying to lean into that. Like,
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure the second track on that album has like a Biggie Smalls drum pack.
Oh, sick.
That's like what the drums are built off of that I found on like Reddit.
Wow, you got drums off of Reddit for the last record?
Well, I think that's a great way to, instead of like using like Splice,
Yeah.
I like to like go on Reddit and like find like free zip files or whatever folder.
You are just like the hero for all people who want to get into recording but think it's too inaccessible and expensive.
No, yeah, I mean, it's crazy actually because you'll download these files off of like the Reddit comments, and then it's just like literally like thousands of samples
Wild.
for free, and you just I'll just like dig through until I find one that I like, and then I'll just be like, yeah, let's just go with that one, you know.
Okay, sick. Okay, let's talk a bit about your guitars. So let's start with, you mentioned the Blue Ridge. What else were you playing in the Bay Area?
So that, and then when I was 13, I got another acoustic guitar, which was an Ovation Celebrity.
An Ovation
thing.
Celebrity?
Ovation guitars are so interesting. They're so funny, man. I think I got it for $200, or my mom got it for me, because I was 13, for $200 off Craigslist.
Hell yeah.
And I wanted it because there was a band called Such Gold.
Uh-huh.
That's, I think, from Boston. They're like a pop punk band, but they're honestly so sick. They have an album called Misadventures. Okay. That still totally holds up, like a post-hardcore record. But they had an acoustic version of a song, and I saw it when I was like 13, and they had the Ovation, and I was like, fuck yeah, dude, I need one of those right now.
What did you like about the Ovation?
Well, once I got it, I didn't really like very much about it. It's super, I actually still have it, but it's like in storage. Yeah. But it's super loud, which is nice, like, and really like kind of tinny. Mm-hmm. The strings are like dead on it, but that's how it sounds. And there's like, it's like the opposite of like a warm guitar. Okay. You know? And so then, and it has a plastic back. That's these Ovations have
classic.
The round plastic back.
To me, I'm sorry, listeners of the podcast, but I've always been so weirded out by the texture of.
Yeah, it feels like a like turtle shell. Yeah. If someone's like an Ovation fan, I feel like I could see that. Maybe they have like a really cool like cult following.
There are some cool crazy ones I've played, or we had at Old Style.
Damn, maybe I should get another. I loved how it smelled.
You loved how the Ovation smelled?
Yes.
What did it smell like?
Like musty.
Oh.
But like guitar, like an old book, you know, like that kind of like I can think of the smell right now, you know.
Okay, visceral.
Yeah.
Okay, so then
old wood.
Something we haven't fully
old plastic.
We haven't fully said, but it's implied, is that when you were a second year in college, you moved to New York. Mm-hmm. So what guitars were you playing around then?
The Ovation.
Okay, so the Ovation still.
I played the Ovation until I bought a Guitar Center Martin.
Ooh.
Like a Road series.
Okay.
When I was like 19.
Sick.
At the Guitar Center off Union Square.
Shout out to the Guitar Center off Union Square.
Yeah, and then I played that for a bit, and I left it. The first night I got it, I left it by an open window, and it was like December, and I heard a big pop, and it cracked. Immediately.
The first night you had it?
First night I had it, yeah.
Renny.
And it's to the front, still has like this big crack, and then I lent it to Noah, and he dropped it the other day. So now it has two big cracks. I'm
not gonna say Noah's last name just so that we leave him out of this.
But that guitar was cool. I mean, honestly, the guitars that I loved were probably electric guitars more than the acoustic guitars.
Okay, so tell me about those.
Grew up playing also like any sort of electric stuff. Was my older brother's SG.
Cool.
I don't know if it was actually like, I don't know much about it because I think he pawned it off at some point. But it's like, it was faded white paint SG, like really sick. I don't know if it was like bought that way and it's like a reissue, or if it might have been like some like real nice vintage SG. But I always thought it was so cool, and I wish I had it still. but one day I'll get one.
And
too.
you play a Telecaster now.
Now I play a Telecaster. I just bought my first adult guitar.
I'm really
I
proud
just bought
of
my
you.
first. Okay, let me rephrase that. I just bought my first electric guitar. That's mine. I've been like borrowing friends for a few years. For like, if someone has like a spare electric.
What do you
guitar.
like about the Telly?
I'm always looking for a guitar that feels easy to play.
Yeah.
Like just like, and if that's I played like probably like I even played other Tellys, but this one in particular, like it's made in Japan, like 2003 maybe.
Sick.
And it's just I love it. I mean, the neck also is like really smooth. It's like shiny. I know that some also have like more like woody thing.
Yeah.
I like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I found
The glossy
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like fighting your guitars, like getting guitars that are difficult to play, is so overrated. We need to be done with that. And if anybody listening has seen your live show, it's very electric and emotional, and so it's just like, why would you on top of that want a guitar that's difficult to play?
Totally, yeah. I also think I play the electric guitar, like I play the Telly like an acoustic guitar.
What do you mean?
I was told that, so maybe I'm just
Who said that?
parroting that. It was Isaac.
Okay, we're back to Isaac.
But he said that he said that that it's cool. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna overthink that.
Is it just because like the way you play like rhythm guitar? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, like I play them the same.
Interesting.
If you gave me an acoustic guitar and an electric, I would play it the same. And I think that has to do with kind of like a string awareness thing, because I never like really took like lessons and like did the whole like scaly thing, and like, I definitely like am kind of more or less.
Yeah. I guess on that note,
it out.
And I know it's probably way more intuitive. It's probably too intuitive to explain, but when you're writing songs on the guitar, or even when you're practicing for a show where you're going to play solo or just guitar duo, like how do you conceptualize the guitar parts?
When I'm writing or when I'm playing live?
Like when you're writing or when you're arranging to play solo, essentially. Like, what do you feel yourself gravitating towards?
Like one special chord. Because I still don't know like all my voicings for every chord, like up and down the neck. So sometimes I'll figure something out in a chord progression where I'm like, oh yeah, I know that that's like a minor 4 or whatever, but it's like up in some wonky way where I'm like, I'm not even gonna like consider what this might be. I'm just gonna let it be what
it's
it
all
is.
Feeling.
And I think like if I write something that I like, and then there's also a little kind of like wonkiness there that feels a little like mysterious to me.
Yeah, we're kind of back to the form spring creepiness I talked about.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's like fun. It feels fun.
Okay, so
It feels exciting.
You find a chord in the progression that feels like this exciting point, and then you kind of like build things around it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so.
Cool.
Or I'll like come from, I'm like, all right, one's enough. Let's go back to like cowboy chords,
That is true. I feel like some music is just all weird chords, and then it's kind of hard to hold on to anything.
Yeah, and if that works, like I'll do it. I'm down. But I never want to like, and also it's not every song. Like if there's a song that's just like G, C, A minor, cowboy chords, and it's like rock, it feels good. It's like it's the beauty of songwriting,
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Fix it, man, for sure.
Yeah, you definitely have inspired me to return to some cowboy chords and just leave it. I feel like we talk a lot about like Lucinda Williams too, and
there's those artists that you can always kind of come back to that do that, where it's like every song they play.
Yeah.
And like when you get too deep in like trying to be like write like weird songs or something, or feel like you're like writing the same song over and over, and then you like go and listen to someone like Lucinda Williams or like not even people just in that like genre, because a lot of the time it is that, but like so so many artists, dude. Like there's a band Friendship from Philly. Like I feel like they write like it's a lot of cowboy chord songs, but there's so much they just bring so much to it that feels so new.
Who are some more of those artists that you always come back to?
The artists I always come back to, I always come back to. I'm a Big Thief head for sure. I'm a Big Thief head. I love Big Thief. When I found Big Thief in like 2017, I think I found them with Capacity. That was like huge for me.
Yeah.
I was like 20 and I was like, just moved here. And I was like, wow. I can always come back to John Prine. Who can't though, like the fucking best. I'm a huge Aldous Harding fan.
Yeah.
I love Aldous Harding.
I feel like you can hear a little of that sonically on here. What about Aldous gets you?
Dude, I think she's so cool. She's like my favorite. I love how theatrical her kind of presentation is.
Well, and that checks out to me because your parents are both actors.
They are, yeah. Yeah.
And I would say when people listen to the record, it does feel like it's all you, but there are like some characters involved as well. Like
that I'm kind of tapping into.
Tapping into and talking about. Oh. But Aldous, I interrupted you. Aldous has that theatricality for you.
Also, just her songs are amazing. And her producer is John Parrish, who does the PJ Harvey stuff. Yeah. And I know he did the new Ace Savage record, the Parquet Courts guy. And his production, I think, is amazing. And them together, I'm just like, I could listen to Designer, that album of hers, like, all day, every day, man.
It's deceptively
it's so good.
Simple.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
Like, the arrangements are so simple. Yeah. But so that's precise. So precise, man. And like her songs too, it's like the way her like melodies like sit. She was like my big realization where I was like, songs are just like some chords, like some changes. I mean chords, like some changes, and like a melody on top of it, and lyrics of course. But like that combination, if that's special, if that feels like good, that can be like. She has a song called Treasure that I think is 3 chords with just such a beautiful melody on top. And oh my god,
you don't need much else.
Yeah.
If not, you don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Okay, and then kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on is you play live a lot. You're gonna be doing some shows for the record. What do you get out of playing guitar live, and how's that different for you than being in the studio or being in your room working on something, like energetically, musically, etc.?
Playing live has always been a place where I feel like I really am able to like actually connect with music in its most like distilled form. And I think like whether you're like looking at the person you're playing with and like having a kind of musical like conversation, or you're like shutting your eyes and like kind of when you're playing those songs like really in it, you're also like re-listening to the songs. Like I find like I'll be playing a song and like if I'm actually present during that show, which that's the goal, I'm like, I form like a new opinion of the song.
Oh, interesting.
While I'm playing it in my head.
It's evolving.
I'm like, oh, this song kind of sucks. Or like, or like this part should have been different. Or like, maybe I should have, or like, or if it's not critical, it's like, wow, this song in this room right now is like way better than the recording or way better than when we played it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the song should be in a live entity.
Yeah, and I think that like listening is what makes playing music so good. Yeah. When you're also listening to what the other people are playing or just to yourself. Usually not always with judgment. I'm not always judging myself while I play. That would be not present. But I've definitely done that.
I'd say you come off as a pretty present performer.
That's just the goal, because like it's mostly that when I come off it, like if I just played a show and then I'm like, the whole time I was like heady.
Mm-hmm.
That's like my least favorite feeling ever.
Yeah.
I always feel like I wasted. I'm like, dang it, like. And I kind of have gotten to a point where I just like, if I'm feeling really, really heady, I still am trying to figure out how to get back into that like present feeling, or before going on stage or playing or whatever, no matter if it's not stage, you know.
Mm.
But I think it kind of comes down to a life thing where allowing music to be readily available is also always kind of existing in a way where it like feels like it could be readily available to be present to.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like if it's something that you're just like constantly like allowing yourself to have the space for or to be to interact with, even if you say you don't have a guitar for a week, like for me it's like I'll try to listen to music, like I just love it. It's like listening to music, I feel so much better. And when I'm in that and then I'm playing a show, it's like I'm always way easier to be like present, you know.
Yeah.
Which I think is what makes the music feel like worthwhile, you know?
Yeah. That feels like a really good place to end. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.